Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all. Where's the clicker? Oh, yeah. How to live the principle of creation in your daily life. Close. Where do I point it? Here? I got to turn it on? Might help. Oh, how did that picture get on there? That's one of our granddaughters. Actually, I was babysitting her at the time. And her sister got a hold of her. And Michelle walks in. Where are the girls? I said, they're right back there. And then she steps out. Grampy, what kind of babysitter are you? Anyway, so today's sermon. How to live the principle of creation in your daily life. This isn't working.
I think the clicker might be in that direction.
This direction.
No?
Well, it's this direction.
It's a what?
Point it this way. To them.
Is it turned up?
It's turned on. Battery's weak. It's not working though. Can you do it manually? Well, it's not on right now. Oh, it is. Okay. All right, this is Father's words. You have to think seriously of this divine principle textbook. It is a source to which the individual, nation, tribe, and the whole world will be fatally related. Heaven and earth depend on this one book. But you notice in my title, we're not going to study divine principle. Because if we started the divine principle, your eyes would roll back in your head and you go, it's 411 pages, okay? But today, I just want to, the purpose of this talk is to inspire and stimulate you about the principle of creation. So the principle of creation, it's only 36 pages, okay? Think we can handle that? So this is especially for young people. They really need to fall in love with the principle of creation. Because if Adam and Eve hadn't fallen, this is all that God would have had to taught them. The principle of creation, 6 sections, 36 pages. Think about that, 36 pages. And then that 36 pages is all the plan, it's a blueprint, it's a pattern, it's everything that we needed to create ideal individuals, ideal families, the kingdom of heaven on earth. So is it important? We really have to understand principle of creation really well. So I'm just going to touch on 3 points to try to stimulate and inspire you to want to really pay attention and study divine principle and make it the guiding ideology of your life. You know, everybody has something, some ideology, some thinking, some words, some thoughts that's guiding their life. Well, what is it? For us, it should be principle of creation, correct? Now, it's important, of course, we should know the fall of man, and we should know history if we're so, but the principle of creation is the bedrock, the foundation that we have to understand clearly. Hey, all right? So there's one sentence in the principle of creation, page 24. Every entity created by God assumes the position of a subject partner and object partner. That's a really profound sentence because you think about it. The very existence of God exists as a harmonized unity of subject partner and object partner, correct? The masculine femininity, internal character, external form. So God exists in a subject partner, object partner relationship. And everything in the universe that God created, from the tiniest atoms to the solar system and even the galaxies, has a subject and object partner relationship. Correct? Everything's in. So we have to understand this point really clearly because it also applies to human relationships. So we know parent-child is a subject-partner, object-partner relationship with them, right? If we understand this principle of subject-partner and object-partner, that's how God exists. That's how God exists in the universe, from the smallest atomic level to the cosmic level. And in human relationships, if we want God to exist in our lives, we have to understand the subject-partner and object-partner. And we have to get the subject-partner victory in our life. We have to know how to be a good subject-partner for God to exist in our relationships. And we also have to know how to be a good object-partner and get victory in that for God to exist. So if we know this principle and we really clearly have faith in it, then this is an absolute law that God can't even ignore. If Jim and I make a proper subject-object relationship, then God has to come down. It's a spiritual law that God can't even violate. But if we don't understand this principle, and we're always violating the subject-partner, object-partner understanding of the principle of creation, God can't exist in our life. So is this important to understand? It's important to understand because many times I think if you don't understand this clearly, you're inadvertently violating this principle in your daily life and you're wondering, I don't want it. Why is God not in my life? I don't feel God in my life. Well, maybe because you're violating some part of the principle of creation and you don't know it. But once you correct it, then you can have God exist in your life. Okay? So, in communications, one person's in the subject position, they're talking, right? And your role is to be a good object partner and listen to the person, right? But have you ever met somebody that you're talking to and you know really they're not listening to you, George? In their mind, they're just yakety yak, 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 and they're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can start, They don't understand how to be a good subject partner in a relationship, in communication. And therefore, God can't be in that relationship. But if you understand this, you understand, okay, George is talking, and I'm supposed to shut up and listen and pay attention to what he's saying and be a good object, and then God can intervene in our relationship and inspire him to say certain things and act certain ways, and our relationship can include God, and God can inspire us to do certain things. Understand? So that's just one sentence in the principle of creation. If you study the principle of creation, it's so inspiring, so uplifting, because Father said you have to study the divine principle seriously. Yeah, but the result of living a principle of creation life is real joy and happiness, right? You're not really serious and somber. It's joy and it's incredible happiness, and I'll end with that point that's really exciting. So also, there's another sentence in divine principle that says, that's a nice salmon. That's my daughter. But I digress. Every entity created by God was created with an individual purpose and whole purpose. So how much do we understand individual purpose and whole purpose? Every entity created by God was created with the individual purpose and the whole purpose, right? So an example of a little, next, Rika. A plant, individual purpose, it absorbs nutrients from the soil and from the air and sunlight, right? And it lives for its own existence, but, next, it also lives for a whole purpose. Some deer will come by and eat some leaves off the leaves. So the plant is also serving whole purpose, providing nutrients for other species. So that's pretty clear, right? Individual purpose and whole purpose. So what about in human relationships? Okay. So notice my dynamic graphics. If anybody wants to learn how I did this fabulous graphics afterwards, I'll teach them. No, it's rudimentary. So the principle of creation. So we know we have to grow through 3 stages, right? And then we enter the stage of perfection. So, individual purpose is, what's our goal as an individual? What's our goal? If we don't know our goal, how are we going to get there? Your goal is to become a divine son or daughter of God, right? Are you clear, young people out there in the audience, that your goal is to become a divine? Because I ask some young people, and they go, Uncle Greg, what's a divine spirit? I don't know what you're talking about. They had no idea. I said, you know the 3 stages of growth: form spirit, life spirit, divine spirit. You go, no, I never heard of that. They didn't understand. So we got to understand, our goal is to become a divine spirit. So what does the divine spirit mean? That means the invisible God no longer remains invisible, but he incarnates into you, incarnates into us. So the first thing we look, before we even recognize George's individuality, we see the Spirit of God just radiating from him. Wow, there's a man of God. He's a divine spirit. When you meet George, you meet God. When you meet Reverend Kim, obviously he's a divine spirit. We have to be, we're supposed to be the incarnation of God. So how do we get there? We get there, it's not automatic. You just grow until you're 21 and suddenly you become a divine spirit, right? Adam and Eve grew to become 21 and they didn't become divine spirits, right? Because they violated the principle along the way. So, the principle of creation is the perfected standard of truth given to us by God. And only by following the principle of creation can we grow to become a divine spirit. So, God is a perfect God, right? He's mature. He can't have anything to do with evil right? So how can God, who's mature and perfect, relate to us children who are immature? We haven't grown to become perfected yet. How can God relate to? How can we experience God if God can't relate to anything that's not perfect? The only way that God can relate to us is if we follow the principle of creation, and that guides us through the 3 stages till we become a divine spirit of God. Then you become the incarnation of God. And you don't need the principle of creation anymore in that sense. So the principle of creation is really important. We got to understand this because when we're walking our path to perfection, the principle of creation will guide us, right? And if we get off track, we inadvertently violate the principle, then God's Spirit will leave us. And we'll say, wait a minute, God's Spirit just left me. I must be doing something on principle, right? But as long as you're following the principle, because it's the perfected standard of truth, it's a perfect ideology from God, if you practice the principle, God can intervene in your life, even though you haven't reached, even we're still immature. Does that make sense? Does that show how valuable the principle of creation is? It's how God can intervene in our life even though we haven't reached perfection. So it's really important to understand this. So back to individual purpose, whole purpose. So when you're young, you're a student, you're just kind of developing your career, and that's individual purpose. And then maybe you leave high school, and before college you go to GPA. There you're living whole purpose, right? You're not doing it for yourself. You're out there fundraising. The money doesn't, you become a foreign missionary. Isn't that very good? To live for the, for the sake of the whole, some way. All of us elders, we did that when we were young and single. We were all in the front line, CARP, MFT, business, whatever. We were totally living for a whole purpose. So it's clear, kind of, when you're an individual purpose and whole purpose. You wake up in the morning, you're brushing your teeth. Oh, that's individual purpose, right? If I pulled out, I always carry a toothbrush and toothpaste. You know, if I pulled out my toothbrush right in the middle of a sermon, started brushing my teeth, it's pretty inappropriate, right? Because that's individual purpose. So some people don't even understand that on an individual level. We really have to understand that. When is it appropriate for individual purpose? When is it appropriate for whole purpose? So as you grow and you become a divine son and daughter of God, right? You grow to perfection. Then what happens? You find your significant other. You find your spouse. Okay? So many people think, well, when I was young, I really sacrificed. I was out there on front line, and I was doing this and that for the church and everything like that. Now we're blessed, and I can relax, and I can forget about whole purpose and just focus on my family. That's my mission. Just focus on my family. Get a really high-paying job, make a lot of money, because we grew up poor, and I hate being poor. I want to be rich and spend a lot of money on my children, send my children to the best university. If you do that, you're violating the principle. Because as a family, you have to get together with your spouse and say, okay, honey, what are we good at? What can we do to serve whole purpose? Right? So every family has to say, what am I going to do for whole purpose? Right? So Elena and I got together, and she realized this clown is lousy at business. He hates business. All he cares about is spiritual things. Well, I better go back to the university and get a degree. So she makes money in the family, and I don't. But she allowed me to run all around the world with True Parents, many countries all over the world, and do my passion, which is Ocean Challenge, right? I helped develop that, Kodiak, Maine, all over the country. And we're trying to expand to 13 seaports around America, fulfill Father's hope for Ocean Challenge. So I'm serving whole purpose that way. So young people out there, when you have to think about what are you going to do as a family? What can I do to serve whole purpose? Maybe you both grew up in carp and you love carp and you want to work on the university, you want to, on your free time you go to the carp center and you witness, whatever, right? And then every community has to figure out what can we do to serve whole purpose. We shouldn't just live for ourselves. We should find some way to serve whole purpose, right? So this community is big on supporting Camp Aurora, for example, right? Camp Aurora is serving whole purpose. Some of you volunteer in the summertime and you go there and you work as a staff or whatever. That's good. So every state should think about what can our state do to serve and sacrifice for the higher purpose of the nation? Every city should think that way. And every country, what can we do to serve a higher purpose on a national level? What can our country do to serve other less fortunate countries? And so if everybody understood this individual purpose, whole purpose, and live for the whole purpose, don't you think our world would be a lot better off than it is now? Our families would be better off. So my point is to the young people, once you start your family, don't just give up. You got to find whole purpose. Find some whole purpose. Mother said, grab part of God's providence and hang on to it and be an expert at it. Focus on it, right? Because Mother needs a lot of help, right? So find something you do to help Mother according to, Mother's vision for 2020. Okay? So those are two quick points. Subject partner, object partner, individual purpose, whole purpose. I hope it's clear to young people, especially when you're planning out your life. You've got to think about those kind of things. Did you ever meet some old person that's just so completely selfish, you don't even want to be around that person? All they do is they talk about themselves and they just, and you just think, this person is so selfish. They don't know the simplest thing about living for the sake of others or serving a higher purpose. Other people you meet, they're very generous and they're always concerned about others, and you feel really warm and comfortable around that person because that person's living, a proper way of life. So, you ready for this? The principle of creation teaches us the purpose of creation. What's the purpose of creation? To bring joy and happiness to the individual, to others, and ultimately to God, right? Isn't that the purpose of creation? So God wants us to grow through the principle of creation and to become a divine son and daughter of God and unite with God. So the whole purpose that God created the universe was to fulfill this. So here's a paragraph in the divine principle. I added this part here. The principle says, the place where Adam and Eve become perfect. But I added the holy place. You know what your holy place is, right? You second gen out there, you know what your holy place is? Go ahead, shout it out. Somebody?
Sexual organs.
Yes, your sexual organ. So think about this. The holy place, your sexual organ, where Adam and Eve, man and woman, become perfectly one in heart and body as husband and wife, is also the place where God, the subject partner, giving love, and human beings, the object partners, return beauty, become united. This is the center of goodness where the purpose of creation is fulfilled. Here God, our parent, draws near and abides within his perfected children and rests peacefully for eternity. Is that profound or what? That's just one paragraph in the principle of creation. So let's dissect it. Adam and Eve become perfected in heart and body. They come together in sexual love. But sexual love is not just the physical union of a husband and wife, but it's also the spiritual union, right? And it says in the principle of creation, when people come together in sexual love, they exchange spiritual elements. Is that true, Jim?
Yes.
Have you experienced that in your life?
I have.
Absolutely, so have I. I act more like my wife now than ever. She acts more like me, no. But you know a couple, when Jim starts a sentence and his wife finishes it, right? They're so united in spirit, and right? But the whole point is that God wants to dwell in that relationship. God. So when George is out shopping for his wife for her birthday, he's taking God with him and he's saying, God, what color sweater do you think my wife likes? What do you think of this black one? And God will say, no, George, she doesn't like black. You know that. Or how about pink? Yeah, that's better, yeah. Oh, this lavender one. Yeah. God says, yeah, that's it, George. That's the one. And George buys a lavender sweater and he goes back and his wife says, I love that color. I feel God inspired you to give me that colored sweater, right? That's what it's like when you're living together with God and you're a divine son and daughter of God and you're incarnation of God. You do everything together with God. So what about the holy place? Let's get back to that. That's always an interesting topic. The purpose of creation, the reason God created the universe, was God wanted to have, ready for this? A simultaneous orgasm together with husband and wife. That's why God created the universe. He wanted to experience sexual love together with husband and wife, perfected divine sons and daughters of God. That's how we have to look at marriage. This is the best marriage counseling, marriage preparation, marriage enrichment you could ever ask for. Principle of creation. God wants to dwell in you and experience the sexual love of husband and wife, simultaneous orgasm together. God gets really excited about that. And when you experience that, your life is so rich. You're so joyful all the time. You're so happy because of that energy created together with God. And it carries you throughout your whole life. It's like being grandparents. I tell you, being a grandparent is unbelievable. I'll end on this point. Being a grandparent is unbelievable. You know, I found out my daughter was living in our home when they conceived the first child, you know, and I thought, oh, we're going to have another baby in the house. Right, Elena? And I thought, well, I got 2 boys, 2 girls. Yeah, it's just going to be like having another child. It's totally different. It's unbelievable. Any grandparents back in the audience? 1, 2, yeah. So when that baby was born and they handed it to me, you know, I was like, wow. So when Addie was 10 months old in my home, and I was bouncing her on my knee, and I was singing her the same song that my grandfather sang me when I was a baby. And she did something that shocked me. I suddenly, I see my own character in her. She did something that you know, stimulated me to see my own character in here. You understand? And I went, oh my God. I'm going to live forever through my grandchildren. I suddenly realized. I said, hey, God. And God said, yeah, that's the whole purpose of creation. I wanted to live together through my grandchildren. You're having a deep experience with me through your grandchildren. That's what God wants to live together he wants to see his character reflected through his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren. And someday we'll be a billion years old in the spirit world, and our lineage will still be having grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren and stuff, and we'll always be growing and more stimulated. And that's how so being a grandparent is the deepest experience you can have with God. It's so profound. So I encourage everybody, quickly, as soon as possible, become a grandparent. I encourage all my friends. No, but anyway, I hope that gives hope to young people that there's a beautiful future ahead of them. Beautiful love, beautiful family, children, grandchildren. Aren't we the happiest people on earth? We are so wonderful. Not only that, Jim, the Messiah picked our bride for us. Are we the luckiest people in the world, right? Is there any doubt that's the woman for you, right? I mean, the Messiah picks your bride. I mean, you can't get any better than that. No doubts, right, George? Reverend Kim? And then we're going to have God's grandchildren in our lives, God's lineage. Man, we are the happiest people. So have hope. God is more powerful now than he's ever been in human history. God's love is more deep and stronger now on earth than has ever been in human history. So we have to be incredibly hopeful. And I hope you fall in love with the principle of creation and make it the guiding ideology of your life. Study it, young people, 36 pages. You'll get some really deep, profound revelations from it. So thank you. Let's join together in prayer. Dear God, our loving Heavenly Parent, we're so very grateful for the life that has been given to us. We're grateful we found our true parents. And true parents are the role model of what it means to live together, live as an ideal couple, husband and wife, completely united. Thank you so much. Thank you for divine principle that true parents gave us. True parents it's the legacy they left to humanity. Father's divine principle and Father's words. We follow that, then everything can be solved. All the world problems. We can create ideal families. We can live together in love and unity with you. Thank you so much for the wonderful life we have. Let's be the most hopeful, joyful people and want to spread this to others and share with them also the incredible life of living together as the divine sons and daughters and divine couples, husband and wife, divine family, beautiful heavenly lineage of our true parents. We have the We have so much to offer this world. Thank you very much. I unite together with all the blessed Central families here, Jew.